Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. Here, I'm putting my mask down because I sound muffled. This is another tutorial. This is going to be over 3D roses. I may turn this into a watch me video as well. I may do a July 4th design. As you guys see, I have the colors here, but majority is going to be roses, so it may just be a red, white, and blue set with a whole bunch of roses. I was going to lay my foundation off camera, but I figured, hey, I might as well just show you guys how I do that too on camera. And we're also using my new number 12 Kolinsky Kiara Sky brush. I'm finally breaking her in. This is my first time using her. She is not crimped, so I'm pretty curious to see how this is going to lay. I've always used crimped brushes, but I had to get it. I've heard so many good reviews about it, and she's gorgeous, so let's get into it. I'm gonna use one. I was gonna use the white first. I think we're just gonna go in with the white. And I am using Cherry Bomb, Marshmellow Madness, and Blueberry by Nail Candy Co. Excuse me if y'all hear my my washing machine in the background. And I don't know about y'all, but white, in my opinion, is one of the hardest colors to work with. One of the hardest colors to work with. I'm not quite sure why, but it is. However, it just depends on the brand too. I noticed Mia Secret. Ooh, I love Mia Secret. That's what I started with. But their white is so hard to work with, and I think it's because it's set so fast, and it doesn't matter what monomer I use with it. It can be their own monomer, and I still feel like it's set super fast. However, Nail Candy Co.'s Marshmellow Madness, it's fairly well to work with, honestly. So far so good. So far so good. Wow, okay, I love it. I'm probably going to do maybe 2 whites and an ombre. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna do 2 whites, an ombre with all 3 colors, and then 1 red and 1 blue. So I'm gonna work all my white ones first, especially when you're working with red and blue. Oh my goodness, or really any color. When you're working with white, you want to work with your white first to save your monomer. Ooh, we may do a marble nail. Oh my goodness, I have so many designs. They're like popping up in my head as we do this together. Hopefully we're doing this together. You guys can practice with me. But as you're watching, I'm literally coming up with all different types of designs to do. But we'll keep it simple. We'll keep it simple just for the sake of the tutorial. You won't get too fancy because the point of the tutorial is to learn how to make roses with acrylic. So we won't get too fancy with the base colors. Or base designs. I'm really happy how this is laying. I'm also using CEO Acrylics No Primer Needed monomer. It's not a strong smell at all. I mean, it's strong compared to, you know, low odor, but it's not strong compared, you know, to other monomers. It has a fairly low odor to it. So I'm using their monomer. And it's laying this powder very well. The Nail Candy Co's powders are buttery anyway, so that helps a lot too. Ooh, y'all, I'm loving this brush so far. Ooh, I'm loving it. And actually, what I should have done was given it a stir. I always forget this part. I should have given it a stir at the beginning. It's okay, we'll give it a good stir now. A stir or a shake, I prefer to stir it. This is my new set, by the way. If y'all have not seen it, visit me on Instagram. Photos are posted. Okay, and we'll stir blueberry. I noticed the white marble just a hair, and that tends to happen naturally if you don't mix your powder. So go ahead and always give it a good stir, a good shake, to mix it all up together. That way you can avoid marbling. Okay, so I think we're gonna do our ombre next. I have not ombreed these three colors together, so I'm literally doing this for the first time. I've done a triple and a quadruple ombre before, but never with these three colors. So this is gonna be interesting. With my ombres, especially with triple or anything more than that, always start at the bottom. I mean, with any ombre, really, you really want to start at the bottom. And it really depends too on what type of ombre you're doing. We'll let that set. And sometimes you can let it set, sometimes you can apply your colors back to back. I prefer not to. I mean, well, it depends. But since I'm using this for the first time, or doing these three colors for the first time, I prefer just to let it set first, especially with the white. It was a pretty big bead, so I drug it all the way back. It was pretty thick, if you couldn't tell, but it was definitely thick. So I decided to just pull it back. Yeah. And remember, this is colored acrylic, So you don't need to build with this. And you don't want to build. You want to get structure, apex, etc. That's when you want to cap with clear to build your structure. Okay, actually, before I go in with cherry bomb, blueberry is fairly set well. It's a little see-through. I'm not going to worry about it though. Remember, we're going to cover these with roses anyway. Gonna go and add a little bit more white. And I can kind of just, I do this sometimes. I'll go across with my brush like that. And I could add a little bit of blueberry, just a hair. And you want to feather it super. You want to get your brush a little, not too saturated, just a little saturated, not too much. And feather it back. This blue is so pigmented that you have to be, oh my goodness, you have to be very careful. Feather it down a little bit more like that. It's challenging ombreing such dark and light colors like this. Gonna go in and get a little bit of white, just a hair. And I actually could wait until it sets a little bit, but I won't. Clean your brush off real good, feather it back like that. Feather a little bit more toward the bottom. You guys, I'm telling you, this is literally my first time, I want to say, doing this type of ombre. Now this red is going to be interesting. Interesting. We're going to let this sit a little bit longer because you don't want to ombre your red in and it turns pink. We don't want that. So I'm going to put it down, let it set fully. Then we're gonna go in with the red. Meanwhile, I'll do this red nail here. looking nice so far. I know we're almost gonna get to the roses, y'all. I'm excited too. All right, let's see how we do with our red ombre. Here we go. I always tap, tap, tap my brush. I do not drag my powder or drag my brush through my powder. I tap it. Clean my brush off real good. I'm going to clean it red up. If you're going to clean your ombre up like I'm doing, you have to be, piece of blue. You have to be very quick while it's still wet. Because if not, then you're not going to be able to clean it up the way you want to. There is a mini trick that I taught myself. Now, you don't always have to clean up your ombres like this. I usually don't, but if it's something so harsh like this, then I will. And again, you gotta work with it real quick. Constantly cleaning off your brush too. All that. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of white. Ombre up a little bit. Feathering, feathering, feathering. Right, and then it was actually okay before, but I just want to touch it up just a little bit. I want to add a little bit of red. This is so pigmented. Ooh. Low key, I should have left it the way it was. It kind of looked better beforehand, didn't it? Yeah, I think it looked better beforehand, but that's okay. It's trial and error. And that's what I love about nails. It's like, it's trial and error. Okay, we'll try to do our best one more time, and then I'm just gonna let it go. I'm really mad though, because I probably should have left it the way it was, because it wasn't terrible. but I always overthink it and end up kind of messing it up. Alright, y'all, I think we're gonna leave it alone. I think we're gonna leave it alone. Because we'll be here all night trying to work on this when this isn't the the point of the tutorial. Okay, let me wipe off this red. Alright, we'll leave it alone, guys. Not too bad for a first time. Not too bad. Alright, let me pull out to my monomer. And this is how it looks. Black owned company. CEO Acrylics. Visit them on Instagram. Tell them Tia Boo Nails sent you. Okay. Alright. Kiera Skies brush. 10 out of 10. I love her, love her, love her. Definitely going to order another one. Probably order 14. I have not gone up from 12 yet. I might order 14. Alright, so we're done with that. Now to the good stuff. Oh shoot. I pulled out my other number 12. I need my 3D brush. Where is she? This is my 3D brush from Vanessa Mataroni. As y'all know me, I love my chameleon. And she is lovely. She is cracked. Alright, so we're going to start with a white nail. And we're going to do a red rose. No, you know what? Let's do blue. You want to saturate your brush. This is a size number 2, I believe. As always, you want to wipe one side of your brush to get any excess monomer out. Depending on the size bead you get. I dipped mine 3 times. It's a little dry, so I dip my brush back in the monomer. I touch it with a little bit of monomer there to saturate it. The key is here is to make sure that your brush is dry. A little wet, but not saturated. Kind of want to play with your bead there. And as your bead starts to cure, that's when you want to start moving it around. Some say to wait until it's matte, but unless you're a pro, I guess, if you will, I suggest you kind of start moving around. Not immediately. You do want it to cure just for a second and then start moving it around. You don't necessarily want to wait until it's super duper matte. This is what I've learned from my first 3D flower video. Especially with roses. Now, I didn't show roses in my first 3D video. I should have. And I've been putting this off for so long. Oh my goodness. You can start doing it in a crescent. You can make your petal into a crescent like that. And you want to rotate. Now, if you don't want to, now let's say you're doing this on a client, you don't want to rotate your finger or their hand because, I mean, you can't do it. You can do this. You're going to have to move your hand kind of awkwardly. Take your time with this. With your roses, your flowers, this is a very intricate design. So you want to take your time with this. If clients book 3D art, make sure you have a disclaimer that this is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, I wet my brush just a little bit, not saturated, just so it can be wet. kind of go under the lip there to give it more depth. You don't have to do this, but I do, just to make it a little bit more realistic, because we all know roses aren't super flat. They do have some bends and curves to them, right? I'm going for our second bead. When you go in and add a drop of monomer just to kind of saturate your bead, you don't want to drown it, because you don't want to run after it. You don't want to chase your bead. So you kind of want to layer it like that. That's going to give more of the 3D dimension to it. Well, actually, what kind of add 4D, but. And then you want to push it out. Working with darker colors too, like this, can be a little tricky. Because you can get it in the inside there, that's fine, because it's going to be covered up anyway. But you have to be very careful not to get it on the outside. You want to use the belly of your brush there, the tip and the belly, to flatten it out. And then while that's going, you can lay down your third one. Now as you're doing your petals, your layers, I mean, as you can see, you're not lining them up completely with the other ones. You kind of want to put it in this below, like, and kind of inside. Because once you start to flatten it, that's when it's going to go outside. That's when you're going to get the roundness of your flower. So that's what you want to do. You don't want to line it up. I mean, you can, but you're going to have to add more layers on the inside of your flower. So it just depends on how detailed you want your rose to be, how big you want it to be too. I'm going to do a bigger one here too. That way it can be more better, because I realize this one's a little bit tiny. And I may end up zooming. I mean, it's tiny for tutorial purposes, so I may end up zooming in. Yeah, I probably will zoom in. I love detail art. I love 3D work. So this is like my happy place. So I'm so glad I'm finally getting to it to show you all how I do my flowers. And at the same token too, I don't think I was super duper good at the time I did my other 3D flower tutorial. And even now I feel like I need to redo that one. And I did drain my brush. If this is your first time giving this a go, good for you, because this can be very tricky if your powder to liquid ratio isn't right. If your beads aren't right, this can get tricky. And I'm gonna go in under the lip here. Now what I can do, I can leave this one alone and just start my other one. I'll probably, I'm debating if I want to, because I'm going to be changing colors. Or I could just do all blue. Let's do that. Let's do that. I have a really big bead now. I'm just going to add just a drop or two to saturate it a little bit more. And actually, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to add another bead to it. And I did that because I'm about to make this, I'm about to make this one a really big one. I'm gonna saturate my brush a little bit. I'm gonna wipe it because it's too saturated. But the wetter the bead, let me not say that, because again, like I said earlier, you don't want your bead to be too wet because you don't want to be chasing it, you know, moving your brush trying to form your bead because it's running. You don't want to do that. You're gonna get frustrated. However, like this one, it was wet, but it was it was starting to cure, so it wasn't running from me. And I also did realize too that I had too much liquid in my brush, so it just depends. You'll know as you're doing this, and the more you continue to practice, you'll get a feel for what's too much, as far as your bead, if it's too dry, if it's too wet, etc. Alright, so I'm already forming my crescent. It is already matting up on me, so I'm going to saturate my brush, or wet my brush rather. I'm not going to saturate, I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to go back in. And I'm going to start forming my petal because it's already turning matte. I feel like sometimes the bigger the petals are, the prettier it is, only because it can be much more detailed. Kind of see the detail there, even on the sides. It's small, big, it's kind of going like that. To get that look, press more down on one side of your petal, like that. And then on the other side, press down more. Lift your brush up, do a little bit more here. And you have your wave going on, just like a real petal. And tap down just on it a little bit so I can get some of that brush texture. Oh yeah. It's gonna be fun. Let's go back to our smaller one here. Now, as you go in, your beads are going to get smaller and smaller. This is where it's going to start getting tricky too. Because if you get too big of a bead, then it's not going to look right. And low key, I probably could have and should have made this one a little bit bigger, but it's okay. It's not matte, so we're still able to work with it. If I really wanted to, I could add more powder, but it's okay. We'll make it work. Probably going to add this petal here, another one here, and then my center and be done with it. I'm not going to get, you really don't need to get too detailed. You can add 2 petals, your center, and be done. Because you don't want it to look sloppy. I'm going to wet my brush a little bit, dip in that monomer. Brush it on my towel. And then go in to flatten my petal. See, look at that. So I thought this bead wasn't going to be that good at all, but it actually turned out okay. I'm going to let it set for just a second. Then go in and kind of move my lip up a little bit to give it some more depth. Okay, I'm going to go in here, right there. I'm going to go in right there. Or I could just go in right there. That's not too bad. Alright, I'm going to add my other one. Ooh, see? I did too much monomer. Y'all see that? Too much. This bead is very juicy, but that's okay. I'm going to let it set. Now this is the key. Let's say you get into your smaller flower like that. Your bead is too wet. And they're like, dang, I don't want to move it or wipe it away because it's going to destroy your flower, right? Let it sit for just a second. Make sure your bead, your brush is completely dry. And then go in and move it. Let's see what it does. Even if you get a little bit on your brush, that's all right. Wipe it off. And just play with it. Move it around. Start forming your crescent. If you continue to get a little bit on the tip of your brush, that's okay. Just wipe it off and come back. So, like I said, let's say your bead gets too wet like that and you don't want to move it to destroy your flower, because it probably will do that. That's speaking from experience. Let it sit. Drain your brush completely. Let it sit. Come back and work with it. And there you go. I'm probably going to bring this around just a little bit. I'm going to bring it around just so it can touch my other petal just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to wet my brush. That way I can form my petal. And there we go. And there we go. Dragging this over just a little bit because I do want it to connect. I could add a real baby bead there and connect it, but now I won't. It's okay. I'm going to push down there, push down here. Ooh, I ain't want to push down that much. That's okay. Let that sit. Gonna let that sit. We're gonna work on our big one. After that completely sets, then we're going to add our center and be done with the smaller one. Oh, I was like, where'd my bead go? Oop! Hold on. I was going to get my brush back in and get it, but we're not going to do that. Y'all see, here are my real life bloopers. I am not going to edit them out because guess what? This is reality. Alright, my little handy dandy spoon. Okay, alright. Take 2. Where do I want to lay it? I'm going to lay it here. Boom. I'm going to add another bead on top just a little bit. And it's pretty, I'm going to saturate this a little bit. Alright, then let it set. I mean, in my opinion, there's no right or wrong way to do a rose simply because they're all different. So you really can't go wrong with this unless your rose comes out looking like, I don't know, maybe a completely different flower. But I mean, you know, I mean, there is a right and wrong way. I mean, if your flower doesn't come out looking like a rose, clearly it's wrong, but you know, roses come out different. They come out differently. So if you can recognize it as a rose, you did the right thing. If it doesn't look like a rose, you ask me, what is this? And I don't say rose, then Houston, we have a problem. I know for sure. I think my roses kind of come out the same. It just depends. It just depends. Sometimes I feel like my roses come out better using my non-dominant hand. And I'm like, how was that? And I'm like, well, maybe it's because I'm a little bit more focused. So, alright, look how we did that again. Got my heel effect. Remember, you push down one side. Want to kind of go skip around and give you more depth like that. Center here, my center bead. I'm going to add just a hair monomer, just a little bit. And I'm gonna let that set. I'm in frame. Gonna let it set just like that. I used the tip of my brush to create my little dip or a little hack because I'm all about hacks. You can use the dotting tool, and once it becomes matte, and you can just stick your dotting tool in it and create your little dot, your little center. So before I move on to my third petal and my bigger one, I'm going to actually wait until that sets, because if you wait too long for that to set, then your rose is going to look like that with a ball in the middle. Which doesn't look too bad, but I like having a little dip in it. Okay. Oh, you kind of want to dip your brush in the powder just a little bit. It helps not stick. It helps not stick to the acrylic in case it's still wet. And in this case, it's still wet, so I probably can actually start my third bead, because I'm pretty quick with it now. So by the time it's done setting, I can have my third bead here down. That's a pretty big one. I'm going to add a little bit of monomer to it, saturate it. Boom again. I'm going to go back here. See how it's stuck a little bit. There we go. Ooh, okay. And we start moving this around because it is starting to set pretty good. So you see how I'm barely lifting my brush up? I'm kind of going back and forth within the bead. I'm barely picking my brush up. And as you form your crescent, as you're adding your layers, you kind of want to thin it out. That way it doesn't overpower your other petals. Remember, 3D, you want to add depth. That's the key to 3D and 4D. You're wanting to add depth to whatever you're creating. Okay. And if you feel like you pushed your petal out too much, you can still push it up. You can push it up a little bit. It's drying out here, so I wet my brush a little bit. And I'm going to push it up. See if this set. Okay, yeah, so that's set. Okay, good. We haven't even gotten to the other nails yet. I'm telling you, this is a very intricate and time-consuming design. The more detail you get, the more time it takes. So make sure you are charging your worth. 3D, 4D, 2D, and up. 2D art, 3D art, 4D art, sometimes 5D. Very time consuming, and it's not cheap. Oh my goodness. Get my handy dandy spoon out again. So I'm probably going to add another layer here, or another leaf here. and feather it out this way. May add a small one here, not too big. Let's see. Let's play it by ear. Let's see. Let's definitely add this other one. Ooh, I got a fuzz ball on my brush. I'm gonna let it set just for a second and then start forming your crescent. It's very vital that you wait, because if you start working your bead too early, it's probably still going to be too wet and you're not going to be able to control it. Some people can work while it's super wet. I can sometimes. It just depends. Sometimes working while it's super wet is better for me. Okay, I'm not gonna flatten it out just yet. Okay, here we go. I probably should have made this bead a little bit bigger. Just for the sake of, and luckily it's still wet, so I still have a little bit of time to play with it. Okay. So I'll add one here, then my center. I kind of wanted this to come up a little bit more. Let's say that happens and you're just not satisfied. I want it to be bigger. You can grab another bead and add it there. Let it set and feather it out and blend it. The key is, if you want to do that, you have to do that now while this is still wet. That way you can blend it in seamlessly and it all cures at the same time. Although this is already curing, if you hurry up and add your little bead here, then you can feather it in to where it'll cure on top of this seamlessly. There you go. So, if I wanted to, I still had time to add it, but it's okay. This bead is too big, so I'm gonna wipe it away. And that's okay. You're probably gonna waste a lot of beads at first. It's better to start off small than to be too big. This is actually bigger than this one, so I'm gonna wipe that one away too. This is where your powder to liquid ratio comes in it. It's still a little bit big. I'm going to add a little bit more. I feel like it's the same size, right? But that's okay. It's cool. We're not going to stress about it. We're going to make it work. Add just a drop of monomer, just a little bit. Remember, you want to work with less powder as possible. The smaller your leaves and your layers become. Okay, I need my brush to be a little bit wet because I'm not chasing it, but it's not formed to a good bead like I want it to be. There it is. I'm draining my brush as I go. I notice this one is very saturated, this bead. So I'm forming my bead the way I want it. Draining my brush as I go. And I'll let that sit for just a second. And then I'm going to move it around. I'm going to push up into it. Like that. Actually, I'm going to kind of move this. I'm going to push it up this way. I don't recommend doing this. I mean, you can do it. It's just like for beginners. You may mess up. I'm literally moving my bead over. You have to be quick. I'm literally moving it over. That way this leaf or this layer doesn't cover up this one. I really like this depth here. I don't really have any there. So I'm going to move this one here. Now I'm going to flatten it out. And I can actually move it a little bit. Boom, there we go. That way. There's a little bit there. And there we go. I'm gonna wet my brush just a little bit so I can give my depth here. Ooh, not too much, not too much. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'll leave it like that. I'll add it there. Boom. There we go. We'll add it there. If I want to be even more detailed, I can add one here. But I won't. That's the key. Let me see if I can take it out with it. That's the key. The bigger they are, the more layers you have to do to make it look more realistic. If I was doing this on a client, I probably would add one more there. Just a teeny one. And then my center one. But I'm just going to add my center one. This is just me forming my bead again because it's a little wet. That's okay. Just forming my bead and draining my brush as I go, just like before. And also, the bigger your leaf is, or flower rather, you can just dip your brush into the bead and create your little center here. But the bigger they are like this, I actually will go in at an angle and I will actually flatten out just a little bit on one side. And this can be a small layer in itself. So once it gets a little bit more dry and matte, I'm gonna go in with my tip of my brush at an angle, create my dot, move it around a little bit and start flattening, but you'll see here in a moment. So I'm gonna let it do its thing. Okay, I will wet my brush. You want your brush to be wet. And it's starting to get a little matte. It's still wet, so let's go. Since I have no layer here, I'm gonna go in from this angle. Let me wet my brush again. Hold on. Drain my brush. So it won't layer it, but that's okay. See that? Very, very lightly. You want to do this. I'm literally feathering around, barely even touching it. There you go. There you go. Alright, so I guess I could show you how to do a leaf too. And sometimes I do a leaf. Ooh, that's dry, isn't it? Better for it to be super dry than super wet, because again, you don't want to chase it. I haven't done a leaf in a while. Okay, let's see. Definitely want to just play with it. Kind of start dragging it down. And as you drag it down, drag it lightly. That way it can come to a point like that. And draining your brush as you go. You kind of want to wait till it gets matte. Then you'll use the belly of your brush to flatten it out. Kind of looks like a pepper at first. And it's getting matte. So you want to wet your brush, not saturate it, but you want to wet it. Use the belly of your brush to gently push down. And then you want to turn your brush to the side. Probably flatten it out a little bit more. And then use the side of your brush to kind of make a dip. Use the side and the tip to make a dip. Like that. And then if you want to get super detailed, you can use a X-Acto knife. I have this little tool here. It's part of like one end of my cuticle pusher. It's a little sharp end here. You can use an X-Acto knife too. And you can even get real detailed. See, you can get real real detailed and add your lines in to make it a real looking leaf. If you want to get super detailed, I tend to get real detailed with my artwork, so I always add the little stem part in to the leaf. Alright, I'll show y'all with red. And I probably will end up doing everything else, all the rest of the roses off camera. Because this is a very time consuming design, especially since I'm going to do roses practically on all of them. Real time consuming. We'll probably be here for another hour. Just depends on when I'm done editing this, how I break it down. We're probably here for another hour. And especially since I'm going slower for tutorial purposes. Also, to make it easier too, whatever color you're working with, bring it closer to you. That way you're not having to reach all over the place and drop your bead and all that stuff. Like that. But my bead, that was too dry. Let's see. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. We'll just run it back here. I'm dipping it a lot of times because I'm going to make this one a pretty huge one too. I'm going to actually go back in and grab another bead to add on top of this one. Okay. With the excess powder, I mean, sometimes I'll jiggle it in. That way I'm not having to waste it. But if it's just not coming off your brush, when you try to blend it in, just wipe it off. It's cool. That way you're not having to fight with it. And it all depends on how layered you want, or how detailed you want your petal to be. It doesn't have to be a perfect crescent. You can make it lumpy looking like this. That can help give you more depth if you're not really good at going under the lip. And don't worry about this inside here, it's okay. It's going to be covered up. Okay. Thanks for tuning in so much. Thank you all for your patience, because I know a lot of people have been waiting for this 3D flower tutorial for months, probably at least a year or two, because I was supposed to have been done this, but I want to get a little bit better before I showed others how to do it. And I feel like I'm at that level with it, and comfort level too, to share with you all how I do it. Alright, thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe, like, comment. Please let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think I should improve on, etc. And I will see y'all next time.